great challenges of our age, here on Earth and beyond the Earth, in space.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. In case you haven't been following, this weekend, we executed the world's first CTF in space. So here's what's going to go on today. We're obviously going to go over the award ceremony and who won by our resident CTF expert, Jordan Wines. I'm Captain Kevin Berner, again, from the Space Systems Command in the U.S. Space Force. Sorry about that. I think everyone probably heard about it, but late last night, while we were still here, the organizers, we were still collecting data from the satellite to see how well the teams were scoring, but there was something suspicious in the hallway, and we were still here, so they had to evacuate all of Caesar's Forum out of an abundance of caution. But we couldn't necessarily pause Moonlighter, just have it stop going, so we still had to connect. That's us in an emergency exit stairwell. Yep. The show must go on, so massive props to the game organizers there for continuing to execute it. We had to use like our Wi-Fi pucks and hotspots to make sure we were still connected to the satellite itself. We just wanted to make sure the integrity of the game was still intact, so that's why. Here's another shot of us right outside the forum before we had to get ushered away. Thank you. We knew we would be out there for a while, though. Again, the satellite never stops going, and we wanted to get all the data. So one of the teammates invited us to just go and continue uploading into his actual room itself. So we were there until the wee hours of the morning, but we are in a very good spot, and we're very, very excited to tell you the results of the competition here. Unlike some of the other contests, though, we wanted to just front load the awards, so not make you sit through everything. We have a lot of great content though to go through, but just to cut to it, I'm going to invite Jordan up on stage. Thanks.
Thanks, Kevin. I sat through a lot of DEF CON CTF finals waiting to find out who won. So I was excited when they said they were going to do it first, because I know how stressful that can be. So we're going to get right into it. We're going to announce the winners. Except first we have to explain something. We almost had an unfortunate situation where we couldn't differentiate, but we did. If teams remember, there was an update the first day, actually, so I guess it was 2 days ago or yesterday, where we clarified and said, just so you know, tiebreaker mode is where we can differentiate between final scores that are the same based on rounds. So within the same round, if two teams scored, it counts the same, no matter when their windows were, right? No matter where in the window they were. So we weren't going to differentiate between somebody who got an earlier time slot in a particular window. But for a previous round, if you were the first to get to that score, that's how we broke the ties, right? And this is traditionally how it's done in most CTFs as well, so I think people weren't surprised. But it's a good thing that we clarified that, because we did indeed need that. So we've got our second and third place were points-wise scored with fourth place, but because they were earlier to it, first to it, we're able to reveal that the third place team, round of applause for JumpFS RCX. We're going to bring all of you guys up. All right, so I thought we were just doing the first place. We're bringing so come on up stage, or come up front. We're going to actually challenge coin all of the winners. So if the third place team, JumpFS, come on up in front. You're going to come and get your letters and all sorts of good stuff. Sorry, I thought we were, yeah. So you get more stuff later, but coming up real quick. We'll get the whole team up. This is a lot more than the 8 we saw on the table, right? I expect this with a lot of the teams. So one other round of applause for JumpFS RCX, everybody. Congratulations, thanks everybody. All right, and now in second place, go ahead and head back to your seats. It's too small a stage to bring everybody up. In second place, And somebody remind me, I forget the prize amounts for third, second, and first. I should have remembered. So it's $20,000 prize for third place, $30,000 prize for second place, and a $50,000 prize for first place. And in second place, Poland can indeed into space. There's more stuff coming afterwards. I'm not going to hand everything out, but we've got some coins and some letters and much other stuff for all the teams. But y'all worked very hard. You deserve the recognition. All right, thanks everybody. All right, go ahead and take your seats, and we'll bring up the winners of HAS4, the first place scores for the first capture the flag in space. I'm gonna wait till the hallways are cleared. We don't want to cause a fire hazard here. Congratulations to Team Macaroni.
This is Hack Like a Hack, the king of the hill. HAS4, we hack for the thrill. Forget about gravy, let's get to the meal. I'm about to serve you beef tougher than that. Have a cactus, bring your baddest. Ooh, all you actors, bring your baggage. Let me take you on a ride in my rocket ship. This is the future, no Apollo 11. Welcome to space. Better strap in if you want to keep pace. Better come prepared if you want to save face. Boy, need I remind you this ain't a safe place. This is a race, this is a grind. Infinite space, but not infinite time. It's the same face, but it's different inside. HAS4, can you hack it now? Flat set, calibrated, hack is that underrated, flatline. All you haters, game time.
Thanks, guys. Congratulations. Good job. Is it time for Be Real? You had to catch that in time? So congratulations to all of the participants. Everybody worked really hard. Congratulations to those that scored in the finals. Made it here. Making it here at all really is impressive. Let's go ahead and look now a little bit more about how they got here, how the teams did it, the scores that kind of got them into this position. So again, as Kevin said, I'm Jordan, the Binary Ninja guy, or CTF sideline reporter, as is been the case. So this is the breakdown of the rounds that we saw scores on. So you can see who scored when, and again, this is where you can see how that tiebreaker worked out. I can tell people really want to look at this, especially the teams who have not seen this data, so I'll give them a second to catch up on this. This will be on the website later too, so you'll have all this later. You don't have to catch it all quite now. So you may see some that you're surprised you did or didn't see. So let's go ahead and talk about these challenges. If you've been here with us throughout some of our other broadcasts, you saw we've already covered a password manager and flight software freebies, because all of the teams had solved that by the time we presented on the second day yesterday. Those are the two ground station challenges. We talked a little bit about those in detail. Script Kitty was just the ability to execute scripts. And you can actually see that all the teams have their colors, right? So you can see what team scored when. So if you see 5 blocks of color in one of the rows, that means every team has solved that particular challenge. The ones that started to differentiate, where we started to get the final placement, came in Silver Medal, Iron Bank, and Christmas in August. And Silver Medal we had discussed previously. Silver Medal is the ability to take a photo. And taking a photo could have been done sort of a couple of different flavors. One of the photos is just take any photo and download it essentially from the imager on the satellite. And so if the teams were able to take any photo, even while they weren't pointing or aiming, they were able to get points in that particular challenge. Iron Bank is a cryptography challenge. Essentially, there is a secure element we'll talk a little bit more about later. And Christmas in August is the challenge where they had to actually spoof the GPS, right? They had to be able to get the satellite to be in a different location. So here's what those scores look like when you map them out. Again, you can see Macaroni's fantastic jump to the lead overnight, just this last night. And again, as the data came in, when the team was out there on the steps, they're downloading all of the results that let these scores get kind of calculated, right? So this is what happened as we were to pull in all the data. You can see everything that they're doing. And you can see they had a really, really good surge there with several solves. So here's what the contact windows look like. Again, due to physics and the fact that we don't control things absolutely, and there's a lot of noise in the system, and there's a lot of things that you just kind of have to play the hand you're dealt, we didn't know exactly what these contact windows were going to look like for the ground stations that we had for this event until this past week. And so you can see the first day we had a lot of contact windows, but then the second day we had very, very few. In fact, 2 of these windows on the second day, right there in the middle, and then at the end, they were so busy uploading things that very little data could even be downloaded because the communication links are just so busy. We wanted to give teams as many attempts as possible and to get as many of their windows run, and so it was just all uploads, right? And so you have to kind of balance that data. I'll bring the mic in a little bit closer. Is that loud enough? It's so loud to me up here, I feel like, when I do this. You guys can hear me okay in the back? All right, we'll do it closer then. Yell at me if I get quiet again. All right, so let's go ahead and we're going to bring up the Cromulence Challenge team because they're the ones that built all of these challenges, and we're going to deep dive into some of like how they work, how the solutions are. The teams I know are probably get excited to like ask them questions too. So come on up, Cromulence, if you guys want to join me on stage. I'm going to go ahead and play some of the videos while they're kind of coming up and getting situated here. We'll get them on stage. The first thing we're going to watch is the official kind of like, we've pre-recorded some videos with explainers for some of these challenges. And so let's take a look at the Iron Bank Challenge here, if I can play it right.
17,500 miles an hour, 5 miles per second.
Challenge. Players get access to a binary for a script security service called Iron Bank. This service also contains a flag, and if players can hack the service, then they can trigger a download of the flag.
Oh, that was the short version. Yeah, there's a little more details in the other one. That's okay. Thankfully, though, we have the author and some of those that like wrote solution scripts and play tested this challenge, that we can ask them a little bit more about it. So I think, Mike, this was your challenge, correct? Yeah. Why don't you describe kind of the goal of this challenge and leave it alone. It's fine. You're good. You're good. They'll unmute you. Yep. Just let us know like what the service was, what the teams kind of like were told about it.
All right, yeah, so on the satellite there was a service called Iron Bank, and we actually used this service to move the team's scripts from a quote-unquote safe area to an area where we ran it in isolation. And this script required you to do a challenge and MD5 authorization scheme so that it couldn't be used by unauthorized people like the player. However, we exposed the UDP port through RE to the players, and the players would have also noticed there was a very obvious timing bug. We considered making the timing bug harder, but then we were like, this is in space, it's hard enough already. We'll just make it really easy to see. So if you could conduct a timing attack from your scripts against Iron Bank, you could actually crack the MD5 that you needed to authorize without actually knowing the secret key, and that would allow you to download the flag. And if the game had been a little bit longer, we actually would have also seen it gave you the ability to steal other people's scripts. But over 2 days, we just weren't able to get to the point where teams were doing that. But after you got the flag, you would have been able to grab somebody else's script and set it up for download.
I didn't even know about the stealing the script one. That's one I actually hadn't heard. That's cool. So again, like you could do like this kind of challenge. There was like a verification step that has like a secret key. You don't have the secret key. But if you could extract it somehow, and again, if you remember that scoreboard, this is the one that really propelled Macaroni into the lead because they were the only team that successfully solved this. And I think we saw them kind of working on this even on the first day, right? This is something that they were attempting very early, so we weren't sort of surprised that they were the ones to do it. Jason, like when you kind of saw them, like what was that look like watching them attempt this?
Yeah, so every team, eventually, I think most teams figured out the bug. It was a fairly obvious bug, basically. When you were essentially a naive check function where it was not a constant time function, so every time you checked a single byte, it would exit early. And by doing that, you could guess one byte at a time, which allowed you to pass that authentication check. And initially, teams tried a first round where they didn't do a trial, they didn't do any statistical collection of that data, which they wouldn't be able to successfully do it because the timing data isn't perfect, right? There's some statistical noise, there's noise with interrupts and things like that on the satellite. And then we noticed teams figured that out, and they started refining that. And Macaroni was the one that was able to build the best solver for that, and they were able to get that, pulled that off right at the end, basically. I think that was within the last contact window.
And you had actually tested this internally, so you were like, when you, as a CTF, creator, you always have other people on your team who are solving your challenges to make sure you're solving it. Just the author can't be the only one that actually solves it. And so we actually have a recording of your solution script, so we can see it kind of running. We did sort of slow it down just so you could see it on the video. You had like a little bit of a sleep just so we could see it. But again, it's very visual. I love these kinds of challenges. And these are like real world challenges, right? Like the fact that you can actually have timing attacks on a verification that is, if it's not a constant time, comparison. In other words, if I have like a secret and you can ask me, is it this, is it this, is it this? And it takes you longer because you check each byte at a time. That's essentially what's happening here, right? And so you can actually see it. It's just trying every possible byte here. It's just like the movies. It's literally like in the movies when you watch password cracking in the movies, how it clicks through it. But that's really how this kind of a challenge works. Yeah. So Jason, how long did your, if we take out the sleeps, if we take out the prints and the debug, how long was your solution on your laptop able to run?
On the laptop on an x86, it can run fairly quickly, but on the satellite, it takes about 2 to 3 minutes, possibly. This solver actually, it'll guess, and then it'll detect if it made a bad guess, and it'll go back. So when you actually look at the video, you can see the solver go back a byte and re-guess. And it does that because once it made a bad guess, there's no timing variances for the future guesses. And I didn't see any of the teams implement that algorithm. You should have. But it allowed your basically more robust implementation.
So tell me a little bit too about the timing, because I know there was some conversation where teams had very, very few attempts. Again, those windows were super limited right in the whole event. And this is just an incredible, it's hard not only for the teams, but also even the organizers. But because they had such few attempts, you only get a certain amount of signal and noise. And so how did you kind of deal with that when you're
so that's basically the algorithm detecting that. You can see it'll step back, I think, makes a bad get right there, and then it retries. And so that's how you could deal with that in this environment. We had very limited number of contacts. You didn't know what was going on. You could add a little bit of resiliency in that. And the teams, I think they did that by increasing their trial count, so making a statistically higher number of tries, and just trying over and over and over.
No, and I think there was some, even in the challenge design, the first version of it, I think, had less of a signal in the timing, right? So you even had to, as you're playtesting, you tried it, and you're like, there's not enough signal here. They would have to run thousands or millions. It still would be doable if they had much more time to figure it out, right?
Yeah, especially because they had very limited feedback from the satellite itself. Yep.
Yeah, so because every one of these attempts they were throwing up, it takes a while you got a delay and you get your results, and it's the time delay as well as the there's less windows left.
Yep. We knew this would be one of the harder challenges, and it was very hard for us to tune, but everybody I think did a really good job on this one.
Yeah. So again, congrats to Macaroni for solving that one. The other challenge that we hadn't seen worked on yet was called Christmas in August. And who came up with a name for this one, by the way?
So a lot of the naming for Christmas in August comes from me, but this was a team effort challenge, and this kind of fell out really quickly as a way to hint at some of the other challenges in play.
So yeah, tell me about, hold on, we do have the video. Let's see if we got the short video or the long video.
Even as the teletypes around the world pick up the news, we wonder what's being reported in London.
Challenge. Moonlighter is in a known orbit with an inclination of 51.6 degrees. That means its latitude will always be between plus or minus 51.6 degrees. If they are able to get Moonlighter above 80 degrees, they will get a flag.
And there was some mention of cookies at some point, I think, too. What was that about?
So the cookies thing is mostly because that's what I, pair with Santa Claus. So the goal of this challenge is to make the satellite think it is, beyond its regular orbit, at 80 degrees north latitude, very close to the North Pole. The problem is the satellite doesn't really have propulsion on board. Like you can't, do a battery trick and vent it and set it off in some weird direction. So what instead you have to do is like, yell at me if I'm completely misstating this. But the solve is basically you lie to the GPS module about the calibration, something like that.
Yeah, let's hear from the space
That's
guy.
not it. So from the scripting engine, and everybody solved this, so the teams all know, we allowed them to send a partial bit of a message to the GPS receiver, and we appended the start and end of that message, and that allowed you to do a script injection to the GPS receiver. So instead of, and then we didn't really validate that that was only one command or even really a valid command, so we just kind of let you do almost whatever you wanted. Now the GPS user manual has 200 commands or something really painful in it, but if you look in there, there's a couple commands. One was called user datum, and that let you apply an arbitrary coordinate frame rotation. So basically you could just rotate your coordinate frame of your solution, which would let you go wherever you want, basically. But you all actually found one that I didn't see, because I just found the first one that could possibly solve it. There was one called fix that just let you put any arbitrary position in. So that's pretty much what you all came to and did, right? Is you all said, okay, fix will work, and we'll just go to 89 degrees immediately. And as long as you waited for the GPS receiver to reboot, you could do that. And then similarly on the backside, we didn't, even if you did that, you might start seeing errors like, oh, this solution is weird, we don't understand. But we didn't do any validity checking, because I mean, why would we misconfigure the GPS receiver? We would never do that, right?
So the solution that the teams came up with was better. It's often the case, though, I feel like, that you don't, once you know it's solvable in a reasonable time, like you're done as a challenge author, and you're like, yeah, there could be other solutions, but in this case, yeah, so good on the teams for finding the better command.
We were also pretty sure there might be some way to do it by messing with the receiver's time, but nobody successfully did that. But we liked the solution the teams came up with.
Yeah, once you found the easiest, simplest thing. Now, did that make the math easier or harder then as well, too? Because a lot of this is like trying to figure out the math of like where it is, right?
My solution required space math, and I was hoping that I would be mean to you guys, but you found a way to not do space math.
Avoided
so good on you for that.
For that particular one. All right. So speaking of space math, then on the challenges where they had pointing, right? One of the windows that we saw overnight, we have this red bar there. That's during the ACS sort of section of the competition where where teams were able to actually point and orient the Moonlighter. And so during that phase, that's where teams could actually try for a couple of specific objectives, such as the Shutterbug Challenge, which we unfortunately didn't see any solves for. That required them to point and take a picture of a number of specific locations. So it was a bunch of spots all over the globe. Who wants to tell me more about that particular challenge, what the constraints were, and yeah, how it would have been solved and what we think kind of happened?
Yeah, so for that one, it actually does, you had to go, it was sort of like last year we had a challenge where you had to point at planets and, take pictures of them, or I think we just called it an exposure. This year we wanted you to do a real image of a location on the ground. And a lot of the quaternions actually that you issued looked pretty good. One of the things with imaging is it takes a long time, usually a couple months of operation to really understand how your satellite works with timing and everything and calibrate things correctly. So the constraint we set up before the game was about 100 kilometers, and we did have some teams within like 150 and 170, I think 250 kilometers. A lot of teams got pretty close on this. We think it was just a little too hard with the constraints we set up with the timing constraints between our processor and the camera that caused that issue. So, unfortunately, it was just a little bit too hard. Ideally we would have had more time to really nail that down. With like a month of more commissioning, we might be able to get it really, really, really tight on the timing.
I think that was something that surprised me. I didn't realize how much it's sort of like this. Learning process is almost analog process where you're learning the constraints, even with things like the orientation, the axis. There's a lot of that kind of goes into satellites where you're just sort of used to your computer. It either works or it doesn't. It's not a question of like tuning and timing.
Yeah, I think we at one point put a message in the channel that you weren't operating on a 3 gigahertz x86 processor. It was only a quad core 100 megahertz RISC-V processor. So some of the teams thought they could run their scripts all the time and they would complete in like seconds, and that wasn't the case.
So Logan, you've been doing a lot of the satellite operations. Do you have time to kind of answer some questions now about kind of how it was interacting with the satellite, or?
Yeah, sure. So sure you guys realized from the Cosmos definitions that we posted that we were using OpenC3 Cosmos to do all of our satellite communications. So that's a open source tool that lets you build up these command and telemetry definitions, and all of the interactions that we had with the satellite during the game were scripted out. So for each contact, we would have a command load, which was all those out-of-view commands, all the tasks you guys scheduled. We would start running them. We would upload that to the vehicle, stage all the scripts that you guys built into the correct locations, and then at that point, we just wait. We sit there and wait until any of the out-of-view commands hit the time when they're supposed to execute. We execute all of them all the way until the next contact, and then we save all the data that we would want, and then in that next contact, we just keep repeating that.
Speaking of contacts, when is our next contact?
It's in about 30 seconds.
Oh,
so,
hey, do you guys want to see us talk to a satellite?
Yeah, we're gonna do it live. So we actually this morning we're trying to stage all the images that you guys downloaded or that you guys took. So we set up a plan this morning to hopefully download them from the camera to the actual flight processor. The camera itself has a gigabyte of actually flash memory, so we didn't move a lot of them to our flight processor because we only have a little bit of NOR flash. So we stage them there, and then we download them from there over the S-band downlink. So we're going to see what we get. We're not really sure what's going to happen, but we expect to get at least a couple images here.
You want to plug it in?
Yeah.
Let's do it. We didn't test this beforehand. This was very much a let's do it live moment. So we'll see if this works. And it literally is. This is the suspense music for this because this is a live window. We're gonna see if we can get this going.
So we're going to be taking a pass over Minjanoo, Western Australia, and the transmit antenna doesn't turn on until about 5 degrees above the horizon, which we just hit. And so right now we're trying to establish a link with the vehicle.
So the links on these windows, right? Like I've been hearing you guys talk a lot about like they're about 10 minutes, give or take. Like, can you describe kind of what a window looks like? You said there's upload, there's download, there's command, there's how does the overall shape there?
Yeah, so for most of the game, we were prioritizing sending data to the vehicle so you guys could execute your schedules. And then bonus time after that, we would try to download telemetry and then generate the scores.
So a lot of those like overnight windows too, right? Where there's multiple, the teams don't have new commands, let you kind of catch up, I assume, and gather things off the
Right, so I think on the first night, before we did ACS, we had a double pass over Chile and South Africa, and we downloaded somewhere around 19 megabytes between those two.
Yeah, it was basically all the telemetry through the first day was in that double pass, and then, as you guys know, quite frustratingly, we weren't able to get any at all until last night after the game, which, very frustrating for us as well. Same with last night at 2:30, we got zero contact at all with Moonlighter when we were going to try and move some more images and have them ready for you beforehand.
So we're still trying to establish link, and sometimes we've seen this with this radio where we don't quite link up until the top of the pass. So this is looking like one of those situations. So
yeah, and that's I learned that you were just kind of describing earlier. It sounds like a lot of the ground stations have sort of better or worse like sort of profiles for the orbit, and you would get better. Some ground stations worked a little better. Some of them, was it just because the path wasn't right over it, or just because of the station itself?
Right. So we've been having some passes are really great. Like you have directly overhead. Some passes are pretty low elevation, and your signal to noise ratio isn't necessarily as good in those situations. Sorry, it's hard to talk when people are talking to my ear.
They've got more than the team is involved in this and is here. So we've got like remote communications. They're trying to coordinate with folks. On this pass.
So Right now we're probably 30 seconds away from hitting the top of the pass.
You said was it the azimuth, as you call it, like, or what's the
zenith?
The zenith, right? The zenith of the pass, which is like the best point where it's like slowest relative speed and like to the station.
And we've been seeing that's about where it crosses the Doppler zero, which is where we kind of link in pretty good usually. So
that makes sense. And so that, you know, if you don't get the connection until then, you just have a kind of narrower time to be able to download and upload as well. So this one, it sounds like the command to queue up the images for download was sent during the last window around 10:30, and so we're hoping there's the images ready to go. If we're lucky, they even said we have no idea if this will work, but we can try it. So this might be, might be a success. It might not be. It depends on things that we can't control. I like the music. Not stressful at all. So did the evacuation last night actually, like, you guys were, it was because of these windows, you had to hit the windows, and so when you're evacuated, you're like running with like a hostage. I think you said like the evacuation happened when you were like a minute or two away from one of these contact windows?
We had about somewhere between like 5 and 10 minutes to go. So they were pushing us out pretty fast, so we relocated to just outside the building and got set up, and then right as the satellite was rising, they kind of pushed us further out, and we found that stairwell.
So
we just got contact.
So we just linked up, and now we can do sat ops.
So unfortunately, like, this isn't like super interesting to watch. But what we usually watch during these passes is that we actually watch a Wireshark plot of the data as it comes down. So we can see these big spikes. We can see these big spikes where we're downloading. Each of these images are somewhere probably in the 200 to 300 kilobytes range. So that's what we're expecting to see. Looks like we got something for the first one that didn't error out. So if we had hit an error, like the file didn't exist or something like that, we wouldn't have gotten past the first line. So whatever that first one was, we got it. Now we got the second one. So as we watch through this, we're going to get through. And then at the bottom, we just have a loop to see what else is on that we're able to pull off the camera. So we decided to do one image for each team, and then just loop over whatever's left.
And in particular, I know that there was, you had some idea for how sort of close. Again, none of the teams were successfully scoring points for Shutterbug because they weren't within that 100-mile radius that they had to be from the bore site kind of target.
It's 25 degrees falling.
So it's 25 degrees is what it ends up. So, but these were, I think, at one point I heard you saying these were in order, at least the first two, were the closest to the correct images. So hopefully the closest to what we wanted.
We're pretty sure, unless Macaroni in Poland overwrote them later. So we'll find out. We could also, we think we got the right ones.
20 degrees. So the pass usually goes until, as long as we have good signal to noise ratio, we'll go to.
Can you bring the mic a little closer a little bit?
Sorry. So the pass, a lot of times, as long as we have good SNR and we're not dropping into a null on the antenna, we should go all the way down to 5 degrees on the pass, and we're at 17 right now. So we probably got another.
We just aired out on the one, the script download, right? So we should have gotten those other images correct. Does that mean they're on your? Try to rerun it. If it doesn't work, it's just like your computer at home. Maybe reboot it to satellite. It's fine, right? It'll be okay. Can we pull up the other images that did download already?
We're at 13 degrees.
So we expect it to go kind of out of communication pretty soon here. We're on the tail end of it.
It's the Wireshark. It looks pretty good. Yeah.
It's just an image. Just lots of packets.
It's 11 degrees right there.
And of course, we'll make sure to share all these images with the teams, and I'm sure they'll be out on the website as well later. Nothing like doing it live.
8 degrees.
Oh!
That's 5 degrees right there. That's in the pass.
Is that a lens cap? What's That's beautiful. That was awesome. I know the teams want that in Discord. We'll get that to the teams.
So yeah, as you guys can see, we did it live and we got some really cool pictures down. At the end of this contact, we also probably pulled a couple more, so we'll see what else we got. But this was the first 5 that we pulled down. The one that said cromulins, that was our picture that we took during game testing a couple days ago. So we wanted to grab that because we actually never got a chance to download it because we ran out of time. So yeah, just to give you guys the whole flow. Friday morning, this was about 5 a.m., we finished uploading the final flight HAS4 builds of the vehicle that we guys ran for the game. So we were really pushing it to the last minute to get the software up to make sure we could play the game and everything would work as expected. And we were able to actually store all the telemetry in non-volatile memory. We actually made a pretty late-breaking change due to a game testing where we were originally going to store a lot more stuff just in a temp file system because we have space there. On this thing, we had maybe about 4 megabytes of non-volatile flash memory that we could put extra stuff in. But we decided we might as well just try to put as much there as we can to save stuff. And I think it actually ended up saving us, right? We actually, I guess it would have been last night between the second to last and the last out of view window, we actually had another vehicle fault that caused a bunch of things to happen. At that point, there's a processor that we connect to that kind of bridges between us and the other sensor devices like the GPS, and it started to become non-responsive. So at that point, anything that went to the GPS just didn't go. And to get out of that, we actually had to do a full reset of that processor. And that also reset us, because we're an FPGA that's basically a daughter card on that board. And because of this change, we were able to save almost 2 days of telemetry and able to actually score you guys and make it work. So we've been putting in a lot of work over the last few weeks to get this all in. The whole team has done a really good job.
Yeah, we would have lost a lot of telemetry without that change.
Can we get a round of applause for Cromulins? Just a great job they did running this game. It's fantastic. What's that? And the Aerospace Village. Well, we got a bunch of other people to thank as well too. Just the fact that we were able to be here with the Aerospace Village, to be a part of this, to be back here at DEF CON in person, to have all of the teams, it's been fantastic. We've got a couple more. We've got time, I think, for some more discussion. So let's talk a little bit more. I had a lot of questions because, again, I'm like a capture the flag nerd, so I was asking the team, like, how much data do you actually get? You heard that 19 megabytes over 2 windows was like a lot of data. There's actually not much communication, right, on the satellite, kind of each one of these passes. So how do you prioritize? How do you choose what you upload, what you download, how much you're uploading, how much you're downloading? Like, what goes into that calculation?
So we actually operated the game almost in reverse of how you would really operate a satellite. We like Aaron was saying earlier, we prioritized getting your command loads up to the vehicle, because you'd be pretty mad at us if we were like, well, we got some telemetry down, but like you can't operate the satellite for 4 more hours. That would be pretty not cool. Normally, you'd prioritize the health and safety data of the satellite and always make sure that your satellite is okay before you ask it to do something else. We flipped that, and we always prioritized your commands. And then we prioritized challenge and sensor data, and then we actually, very last, we prioritized our logging and stuff that would let us really deep dive. So we almost flipped the script, a full 180 degrees and did things backwards for the purposes of the game. And that's why you saw some of the dropout, the big blackouts of telemetry not coming down, is because we actually were prioritizing your commands first, and when some of these passes go, only start at the top. We only get 5 minutes of contact, so there's just not a lot of time. Aaron calls it 10 minutes of terror every time we contact the satellite.
Yeah, to continue there, we had a couple passes during the game where we have one chance to get your guys' command loads up. If we fail, like we did on one of the passes early on, it just doesn't happen, right? And we don't want that to happen, so we tried to practice that whole set of things as much as we could. But at the end of the day, we only had maybe 2 weeks of operations. and less than that where we had something that was really close to our final flight software build that we could test all of this. So it was a real challenge to get everything actually integrated and working and make sure we could actually pull off the execution side of the game that was transparent to what the teams worked on, but very important, and the whole thing doesn't work without it.
Yeah, so, I mean, just to give you guys an idea, so we deployed the vehicle from the space station a month and, not that long ago. And so usually when we do deployment and do checkout operations, it takes several months to do. To make sure your sensors are aligned, to make sure your vehicle is performing within family. And we didn't quite have that time to do that, but we spent a lot of late nights trying to make everything possible for this.
Was there anything that surprised you in terms of the teams and how they solve things? Obviously, we know that the one GPS solution was not quite expected. It was a little bit better and cleaner. Was the solution for example, Iron Bank similar to the one that we expected, or they're still geeking out over the pictures over here? They can't get over it. It's great.
I was really just impressed by the team's resiliency, and everybody I talked to, on the teams, they said that they were having a lot of fun. And it's, I said somebody told me it's like a CTF with a really shitty connection, and I'm like, that's an oversimplification, yeah. But it's definitely a challenging CTF for us, the organizers, and for the teams. And I was just really impressed by all the teams and everything they did, and how they were just rolling with the situation, and that's how it works with the satellite. You deal with what you got, and that's true of real operations. And thanks to all the teams for playing the game and doing a job well done. And
at least it was equally painful for the organizers as it was for the players. So normally, the organizers may not give all the information out. Well, in this case, the organizers didn't have all the information either. They were at the mercies of the windows and connections being dropped and all that stuff as well, and playing with it. So yeah, everybody involved had to really kind of be flexible. So we've got one more image, I think, coming in here. It might take a second. Let's see if it loads up. This is pretty nice. So another CrowdSat one. Are these ice caps that we're looking at, or is this clouds? Or
probably clouds in the ground, and it's probably clouds in the ground and a little bit of slew, so there's a little bit of blur. Yeah.
Some water there as well.
Yeah, it's definitely pointing at the Earth, which as you can tell from some of those pictures, they were pointed at probably space.
Nice. So one more there. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks everybody. We're gonna go ahead and bring Rachel up to finish us out, and thanks everybody for coming in here.
Okay, so for the last time for DEF CON 31, again, we cannot thank everybody enough. The teams, you guys were all amazing. Thank you for your hard work. Everybody who has followed along, who participated in years past, in quals this year, it's literally not possible without that type of involvement. To the Aerospace Village, we've had 4 years of an amazing relationship that we want to continue to grow. Of course, DEF CON graciously accommodating everything that we've brought to this year. I mean, it's pretty spectacular what we have out there. And lastly, I cannot thank all of our team enough, the Cromulence folks, Aerospace Corporation, the difference. When I tell you this is only possible with an amazing team of people, from the bottom of my heart, I thank them all. We are the best team, quite literally, in the world. We pulled off the world's first CTF, and that's a wrap on HAS4. Thank you.
Same place. This is a race, this is a grind. Infinite space, but not infinite time. It's the same face, but it's different inside. HAS4, can you hack it now? Woo! Flat set, calibrated, HAS4, underrated, flatline. All you haters, game times, understated fame. I don't want a part of it, name me. The anonymous name me, the autonomous aim me. Isn't it obvious? I said, isn't it?